Hey everybody, this is Sifu Z, that's Johan, and we're here at the Colorado Kwoon in Denver. This is the Intro to Wing Chun series. Today, the follow-up of recent classes lessons rather, we've been talking about punches, kicks, fakes,
the cost.
So what do you think is next? If you talk about cost,
Price.
you got to talk about benefit, right? Very good. What's the benefit? What's the benefit of all this? Why train in Wing Chun as opposed to Taekwondo or Karate or Jiu-Jitsu or Judo or any of those? Well, first of all, if that's your interest, by all means, right? Wing Chun seems to be of interest to any serious martial artist. Even Mike Tyson,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
A lot of UFC are coming out of the woodwork. Wing Chun UFC guys coming out of the woodwork. And of course, a lot of celebrities. Wing Chun, with the most famous still being Bruce Lee. Okay. But why train in Wing Chun? Well, mostly, we could spend a lot of time. I could spend a lot of time answering that. But the main answer that comes to the front of my mind is that Wing Chun is the synthesis of all the martial arts that came before it. Historically speaking, Wing Chun is a pretty young martial art. It kind of came around about the same time as the handgun, which is kind of funny because the two operate a lot on the same principles, kind of being centered and stayed and focused and all that. So, historically speaking, it's a relatively young martial art. If you think about it, martial arts was highly disrupted by the gun. Highly disrupted, because the gun became the great equalizer. You put it in anybody's hand, especially the handgun. To me, I think the logistics has it that Wing Chun is sort of the epitome of open hand combat before it kind of got watered down by the gun and whatnot. So it's sort of like here's another reason. I think of Wing Chun as the dichotomous key of all martial arts. So what I mean by that, it's a dichotomous key is for plant identification or animal, insect identification. So it's a great tool to identify other martial arts and the efficiency or the effectiveness of other martial arts. So even if you have these interests in other martial arts, or you've been involved in various other martial arts, you'll love Wing Chun because it will allow you to understand that martial art. Wing Chun helps me to understand my Jiu-Jitsu or my Taekwondo, even my Shotokan training. I really get a better understanding of it through Wing Chun. Another benefit of Wing Chun training is, of course, this is maybe specific to Sifu Z style Wing Chun, but one of my rules, no punch, no grab. So in other words, you're not chasing after someone to punch them in this martial art, or to kick them, or to grab them. You're only going to be responding in a self-defense manner to whatever is coming at you, right? And then that often often gets extrapolated as a punch or a kick or a grab or a grapple, right? Another reason, if you never get into a fight your whole life, most of us don't. I'm not talking about myself, but most of us out here don't get into a lot of fights. And I try not to get into fights. I try harder and harder not to get into fights. So if you never use this for self-defense, even though it's good to have a fire extinguisher, right?
Right.
You know. You might anyway. So it's nice to have something in your back pocket, inside of you, that helps in the self-defense. And not just self-defense from other people, self-defense from, inanimate objects and just, things out in the street, self-defense against yourself even, right?
Awareness, like I was saying, yeah.
But even if you never used it for self-defense, you would benefit in the fitness department. And so why this style of fitness over running, lifting weights, calisthenics? Because of a thing called negative impact. All of that stuff has negative impact, especially over time on the body. So it's the diminishing returns problem. So Wing Chun is the most sustainable form of fitness. Now, you might have heard me say this before, but you could stand like this, and I have, maybe you have too, for 12 hours. It's gonna be rough, but you could stand like this for 12 hours. You couldn't stand upright like this for 12 hours, and or even 16 hours. Right? I mean, it doesn't matter. I know some guys have done it for 24 hours or something like that. So crazy. Yeah. You could do this because the structure collapses on itself. So your muscles aren't really strained in order to maintain the structure. So you could literally stand like this forever if you had to stand. Now, I'll tell you what, you could stand like this for longer than you could lay down. You could stand like that longer than any other way that you could stand or sit. In other words, if you stood like this for 16 hours, you would feel better than if you lay down or sat or stood in any other way for 16 hours. So, so that really tells you something about the efficiency and the lack of negative impact that it has on the body. I mean, if this has less impact on you than laying down, then you could pretty much say Wing Chun is zero impact, zero negative impact on the body. Yeah, make sure you don't say zero impact, because Wing Chun certainly impacts your body, but it's not negative impact, not harmful impact on the body. So another benefit of Wing Chun training is you can do it anywhere, any place, and for any amount of time. The key, of course, is the Kaizen. Talked about that in the previous episodes, and if you haven't seen the previous lessons, just check below in the description. I'll have them listed there for you. As long as you choose however much time you want to train, be it 5, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, as long as you repeat that every day, you can benefit, and hugely benefit from this style of training. We talked about in the last class, or last lesson, I got to make the distinction. Classes are when we get together usually after the lesson, when we all get together from all around the world on the Google Meetings, and then we train. So, but this is actually a lesson. In the last lesson, we talked about the cost. So that's also a great benefit of Wing Chun, because we really are set up for any cost, price point, from free to whatever you can afford to thousands of dollars, right? And all of them vary, at least in our from SifuZ.com and our Sifus, you get your money's, you get more than your money's worth. We make sure of that, right? Even at the highest level, and even at the lowest level. And we kind of talked about that in the previous lesson. But that certainly is, I know all martial arts I've done in the past have been pretty pricey, much more than I've ever had to, charge for martial art classes. So, and then the benefit, you don't need a training partner. That's sort of the cream icing on the cake. But especially now with COVID and whatnot, but even pre-COVID, you still didn't need a training partner, because you have your sandbag, you have your sandbag post, you have your mukjung, you have your barchang do, and you've got your pole, and that's it. And those all translate really well to a person in the event that you want to use this for self-defense, but also just as a person to train with, right? Because if we didn't have these, then it really we really would need one another in order to, kind of train in Wing Chun. Although I can't deny what Grandmaster Chris Chan says, you could become a Kung Fu master with Sifu Z alone, which is our first form. So the benefits, can you think of any of them?
I think you covered them. Self-correction and
Yes, oh yes, self-correction. No better method of self-correction, especially when you're doing this stuff on video and you get to see yourself on video, right? Self-correction. What do we mean by self-correction? Self-correction in our structure and our balance and our grounding, right? And this brings another topic, which I'm glad you brought it up. I would have hated to not include this into this lesson. Emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is a huge thing. There's IQ, which is how intellectually smart you are, and then there's EQ, emotional quotation or emotional intelligence, which shows how intelligent you are emotionally, how well you deal with things emotionally. Now, and that's going to be a whole lesson on its own, emotional intelligence. But in brief, IQ is something you're born with, and you can't really raise your IQ. Now the good news is IQ isn't what determines your success in life. It's your emotional intelligence that really determines your success in life. And the good news is emotional intelligence you can build emotional intelligence, which is what makes me think we can build empathy. So, and that's a whole other lesson. So let's not go down that rabbit hole, but just say that one of the great benefits of Wing Chun is the emotional intelligence. I would say maybe put it at the top of the list. That's why I'm glad we didn't skip over that. It's almost so obvious. The emotional intelligence. Of course, the physical strength, right? You can get your cardio and your physical, as if you're lifting, as if you're running, you can get that through just doing the forms, right? We only have 3 forms, and we don't move around a lot, we don't jump around a lot, but we can still get the cardio and the strength training that that you would want, right? And 20 minutes is supposedly the healthy standard now. 20 minutes at least 3 times, or no more than 3 times a week. Although it's another thing for people that like to train all the time, right? Need an outlet. This is perfect because it's no negative impact. So you can go 20 minutes, an hour. You can go every day, right? Now, if you're going to start doing chi sao, that's where you might start getting into negative impact. If you start doing the other training raw or too much, you're not balanced in your training, now you can get into negative impact on the body. But as long as you're doing forms, right, and you're doing the other exercises properly, that's what we're here for, to show you, then there is literally 0 negative impact. I think that's one of the major reasons to train in Wing Chun. So, like I said, if you haven't seen the previous lessons, check them down in the description below. You can make a one-time contribution to this series at paypal.me/Sifu Z, spelled capital S, lowercase I-F-U, uppercase Z, all one word, Sifu Z, paypal.me/Sifu Z. And if you want to join us regularly, of course, you go to sifuz.com, follow the links there, or just go straight on to patreon.com/Sifu, and you can choose a plan there of your liking and join us, live classes and access to even more concise lessons, specifically geared to your questions and the things that you want to know about Wing Chun. All right, we'll see you next class.